The city of Chicago has always been my anchor. The relentless hum of it, the way the lake stretched out like an endless blue promise, even the biting wind that could strip the heat right off your bones in winter, it all felt like home. I'm Matthew Price, 35 years old, and for most of my life I felt like I had a pretty good handle on things. I'd built a decent career as an architect, sketching dreams into reality on paper, then watching them rise brick by brick against the city skyline. It was satisfying work, the kind that made you feel like you were contributing, leaving something tangible behind. My apartment, a cozy two-bedroom in Lincoln Park, overlooked a quiet, tree-lined street. It was filled with books, stacks of them overflowing from shelves, piled on bedside tables, even scattered artfully on the coffee table. Reading was my escape, my constant companion. I loved the feeling of getting lost in someone else's world. A well-told story always felt like a warm embrace. My collection wasn't just a hobby. It was a part of me, each spine a memory, each dog-eared page a journey taken. I even had a few first editions, cherished treasures that I'd carefully preserved over the years, each one a testament to stories I held dear. And then there was Sarah, my wife. Our marriage was still relatively new, just 6 months old. 6 months of what I thought was pure, unadulterated happiness. Sarah was a whirlwind of energy, all bright smiles and quick laughter. She worked in marketing for a big tech firm downtown, a job that often kept her late, but I never questioned it. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, and from the moment I saw her, I was captivated. She was everything I thought I wanted: vibrant, intelligent, and she made me laugh. We had a whirlwind romance, a blur of late-night talks, long walks by the lake, and shared dreams. When I proposed, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Our wedding was small, intimate, exactly what we both wanted. We talked about building a future, about children, about growing old together in this city we both loved. I believed every word. But lately the laughter had felt a little forced, the smiles a little too bright. It started subtly, a shift in the air, a whisper of unease I couldn't quite place. She was working longer hours, even on weekends. Her phone was constantly with her, always face down, always on silent. When I'd try to steal a glance at it, she'd snatch it away with a quick, almost imperceptible movement, a flash of defensiveness in her eyes that made my stomach clench. I tried to push the thoughts away. She's busy, I told myself. Her job is demanding, it's just stress. But the little things started to pile up. A faint scent of unfamiliar cologne on her clothes, one that wasn't mine. A vague, evasive answer when I asked about her day. More often she'd say she was tired and head to bed early, leaving me alone in the living room with my books, the silence amplifying the growing void between us. My usual solace in stories felt thin, brittle. I'd read the same page 3 times, unable to focus, my mind circling the drain of suspicion. I brought it up once gently. "Everything okay, Sarah? You seem a little distant lately." She looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes before it was replaced by a practiced smile. "Of course, Maddie, just work stress, big project coming up." She squeezed my hand, a gesture that felt more like a performance than genuine affection. I wanted to believe her desperately. I loved her. I had given her my heart, my trust, my future. The thought of it being anything less than perfect was a betrayal of my deepest hopes. The denial was a powerful current pulling me under. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking things, that I was being paranoid. After all, she was my wife. We had just started our life together. This couldn't be happening, not to us, not after everything. But the unease gnawed at me, a persistent ache in my chest that wouldn't let go. I found myself watching her, analyzing her every move, her every word. It felt wrong, like I was betraying her by even having these thoughts, but I couldn't stop. The man I was, the one who found comfort in predictable narratives, was being unraveled, chapter by agonizing chapter. One Tuesday evening, she said she had to work late, an urgent meeting. It was almost midnight when I finally heard her key in the lock. I was in bed, pretending to be asleep, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. She came in quietly, showering quickly before slipping into bed beside me. The scent of her shampoo filled the air, but beneath it I could swear I smelled something else, something sharp and unfamiliar, lingering like a ghost. The next day, a Friday, she left for work early, saying she had a breakfast meeting. I was still half asleep, groggy from a restless night. She kissed my forehead, a brief, cool touch. After she left, I drifted back to sleep for a bit, then woke up fully. I went to make coffee, and that's when I saw it. Her laptop was open on the kitchen counter, still on. She must have forgotten to close it, or maybe she was in such a rush she didn't think. My breath hitched. A cold dread seeped into my bones. Every instinct screamed at me to close it, to walk away, to preserve the fragile illusion I was clinging to. But a stronger force, a desperate need for the truth, compelled me forward. My hands trembled as I approached the glowing screen. The email client was open, and there it was right at the top. A thread marked urgent between her and a name I recognized: David, one of her colleagues. I'd met him once briefly at a company holiday party. He was a slick, confident guy, the kind who seemed to ooze charm. I scrolled down, my eyes darting across the screen, each word a hammer blow to my chest. The first few emails were work-related, typical office banter. But then the tone shifted. Inside jokes, flirtatious remarks, and then the unmistakable language of an affair. Plans for secret dinners, whispered promises, lamentations about having to pretend at work. My stomach churned, a bitter bile rising in my throat. One email in particular stood out, dated just 2 days ago, the night she said she had an urgent meeting. David had written, "Can't stop thinking about last night, Sarah. You were incredible. So glad we found this escape." And her reply just minutes later: "Me too, David. It's been too long since I felt this alive. Maddie has no idea, our little secret." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. Maddie has no idea. The casual cruelty of it, the utter disregard for me, for our marriage, for everything we had built. My head spun. The room seemed to tilt. My hands balled into fists, white-knuckled and shaking. Crazy, she had called me crazy. When I'd hinted at my fears, when I'd tried to talk to her, she dismissed me, gaslighted me, made me doubt my own sanity. And all the while, she was lying, weaving a web of deceit around us, around me. The woman I loved, the woman I had promised my life to, was living a double life. The betrayal was a raw, gaping wound. My mind raced, a chaotic storm of anger, hurt, and a blinding need for something, for justice, for her to feel even a fraction of the pain she had inflicted. The city outside, usually a source of comfort, now felt oppressive, its towering buildings mocking my shattered world. My sanctuary, my home, was now a hollow shell filled with the echoes of her lies. I felt a cold, clear resolve settle over me, pushing aside the initial shock and despair. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. A dark, vengeful thought sparked in my mind, growing brighter, hotter, until it consumed me. She wanted secrets, she wanted an escape. Fine, let's see how much she enjoys her escape when everyone knows. Everyone. The biting wind of a Chicago February usually felt like a bracing slap to the face, a reminder that life here demanded a certain toughness. But these days, even the harshest gusts felt muted, distant. It was just white noise against the thrum of a much deeper chill that had settled in my bones. I'm Matthew Price, 35 years old, and until recently I thought I had it all figured out. My apartment in Lincoln Park was cozy, my job as an architect offered enough challenge and creativity to keep me engaged. And just 6 months ago, I married the woman I was sure was my soulmate. Her name was Clara. She had this laugh that could fill a room and make you forget every worry you ever had. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, a casual encounter that somehow blossomed into a whirlwind romance. She worked in marketing for a tech company downtown, a job that often kept her late, but I never questioned it. Why would I? Our first few months of marriage were a dream. We'd spend weekends exploring new neighborhoods, trying out small, hole-in-the-wall restaurants, or just staying in, curled up on the couch, talking about our future. We talked about kids, about a house with a yard, about growing old together. It felt real, tangible. It felt like forever, but forever, I learned, could be a surprisingly fragile thing. It started subtly, like a faint crack in a perfectly smooth pane of glass. Little things at first. Her phone was suddenly always face down, even when she was just charging it. She started taking calls in the other room, whispering, saying it was just work stuff. Her late nights became more frequent and her explanations grew vague. Big project, she'd say, or client emergency. I'd nod, trying to be the supportive husband, telling myself I was being paranoid. After all, I trusted her. Trust was the foundation of everything, wasn't it? Then came the telltale signs, harder to ignore. New perfume, not one I'd ever bought her. A scent that was too musky, too sweet, lingering on her clothes when she came home. The way she'd flinch if I reached for her hand across the dinner table, or pull away subtly when I tried to put my arm around her. Our intimacy, once a vibrant flame, dwindled to a flicker. When I tried to talk to her about it, to ask if something was wrong, if she was unhappy, she'd turn it around on me. "You're being so clingy, Matthew," she'd sigh, or "are you feeling insecure? I'm busy, that's all." She'd accuse me of being jealous, of not trusting her, and each time I'd retreat, blaming myself, thinking I was imagining things, that I was the one with the problem. She was so good at making me doubt my own sanity. The gaslighting was a slow, insidious poison. It eroded my confidence, made me second-guess every instinct. I'd walk on eggshells, desperate to make her happy, to get back to that perfect beginning. But the distance only grew, a chasm widening between us. I'd catch her staring blankly at her phone, a secret smile playing on her lips, and when I'd ask what was so amusing, her face would snap back to neutral. "Nothing," she'd say too quickly. The truth, ugly and raw, began to claw its way to the surface of my mind, but I fought it, desperately clinging to the image of the woman I loved, the life we were building. One Tuesday night, everything shattered. Clara had gone out with some work colleagues. She said she'd be home late, but she'd been saying that a lot lately. I had tried to stay up, waiting for her, but exhaustion finally claimed me. I woke up hours later, sometime past 2 in the morning, to the faint glow of a laptop screen from the living room. Clara must have come home and forgot to shut it down. A strange compulsion, a primal urge I couldn't resist, pulled me from the bed. I tiptoed into the living room, my heart hammering against my ribs, a cold dread twisting in my gut. Her laptop was open on the coffee table, logged in, displaying her work email. My breath hitched. I told myself to walk away, to respect her privacy, but a stronger, darker force held me rooted. My eyes scanned the screen, and then I saw it. An email thread. The subject line was innocuous enough, Q3 project review, but the names in the chain, Clara and a man named David. A quick glance at the latest reply, from David to Clara, and my world tilted on its axis. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You were incredible, counting down till Friday." Incredible, last night, Friday, my vision blurred. I scrolled up frantically, my fingers trembling on the trackpad. Email after email, not about work, about secret lunches, whispered phone calls, stolen moments, pet names, inside jokes, plans for weekends away disguised as business trips. The details were sickeningly clear, explicit, leaving no room for doubt. This wasn't a fling. This was an affair, deep and ongoing, right under my nose. And the David mentioned was her colleague, the one she supposedly spent so many late nights with, the one she'd always laughed off as just a work friend. a red haze descended. 6 months of marriage, 6 months of lies, of gaslighting, of being made to feel insane for simply feeling something was wrong. My heart didn't just break, it imploded, leaving behind a searing void of betrayal and rage. The carefully constructed world I had lived in, the future I had envisioned, crumbled into dust. I stood there, frozen, staring at the screen, the words burning into my retinas. The anger was a living thing, coiling in my stomach, rising to my throat, threatening to choke me. I felt a primal urge to scream, to smash something, to wake her up and confront her, but a different kind of clarity cut through the chaos. Confrontation felt too weak, too pathetic. She had humiliated me in secret, I would humiliate her in plain sight. My fingers, still shaking, moved to the keyboard. I clicked forward. My mind raced, fueled by pure adrenaline and the sharp sting of betrayal. To all staff, that felt good. Everyone at her company, everyone who might have known, who might have suspected, would see. They would know the truth about Clara and her work ethic. But that wasn't enough. No, not nearly enough. I paused, a wicked grin spreading across my face, a grim reflection in the laptop screen. I scrolled through my contacts, her mother, her sister. They adored Clara, thought she was perfect. They defended her when I'd subtly tried to mention her late nights, saying I was lucky to have such a hardworking wife. Oh, they were going to see just how hardworking she was. I added their email addresses to the CC line. With a final decisive breath, I hit send. The satisfying click echoed in the silent apartment, a sound of absolute finality. The damage was done. My hands, still trembling, slowly closed the laptop lid. I felt a perverse sense of calm wash over me, the calm of a man who had just blown up his own world but taken a piece of his tormentor with him. I then went to our bedroom where she was sleeping soundly, oblivious. I grabbed my car keys, my wallet, and a small duffel bag I'd already packed in the darkest corners of my mind. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't be there when she woke up. As I walked out, I paused at the front door, pulling the spare key from its hook. With a deliberate, almost ritualistic movement, I slid it into the lock and turned it. A sharp click, then another, and another. I reset the digital lock code to something only I knew, effectively locking her out. She wouldn't be getting back in here without a very public display. I drove aimlessly for a while, the city lights blurring through the tears I hadn't realized were streaming down my face. I ended up parking near Lake Michigan, staring out at the dark, choppy water. The cold helped numb the emotional pain, if only for a moment. I must have sat there for hours, watching the first hints of dawn paint the sky a dismal gray. When I finally got the text message, it was from Clara hours later. "Matthew, what the hell is going on? My email, and I can't get in." Her texts quickly escalated from confusion to anger, then to frantic demands, then to tearful pleas. I ignored them all, I was done. Eventually she called. Her voice was hoarse, choked with tears, but even through the sobs I could hear the undercurrent of fury. She wanted to come get her things. I told her to come at noon. I wanted her to suffer, to truly feel the weight of what she had done, even in the smallest ways. I arrived back at the apartment an hour before she was due. The morning light filtering through the windows illuminated the wreckage of my life. I went straight to our shared office. Clara was a big reader, a collector of first editions of classic literature. Her bookshelves were meticulously organized, filled with hundreds of volumes, some dating back a century. She cherished them, treated them like sacred relics. They were her prized possessions. A cruel inspiration struck me. It wouldn't be enough to just send an email. It wouldn't be enough to lock her out. I needed something that would linger, a wound that would fester, a mystery that would haunt her. I walked along her bookshelves, my eyes scanning the spines. Dickens, Hemingway, Fitzgerald. I picked up a thick, leather-bound copy of Moby Dick, one of her favorites, a first edition she'd spent months hunting down. My fingers found the last 2 pages. With a slow, deliberate motion, I tore them out. Not the entire chapter, just the very last 2 pages, the conclusion of the epic struggle, the resolution. Then I did it again, and again. I went through every single one of her beloved books, methodically tearing out the last 2 pages of each, sometimes just 1 page if it meant cutting off the very end of the story. I made sure to leave no trace, tucking the torn pages into a plastic bag, which I then stuffed into a garbage bin at a gas station miles away. When Clara arrived, her face was blotchy, her eyes red-rimmed. She was still fuming, but there was a new fear in her gaze, a dawning comprehension of the magnitude of what I had done. She didn't even try to talk to me, just stalked through the apartment, stuffing her clothes and personal items into suitcases. I watched her, a hollow ache in my chest, but also a grim satisfaction. She wouldn't notice the missing pages right away. It would be a slow burn, a torment that would unfold over years, every time she sat down to revisit a cherished story only to find the ending gone. The thought brought a grim smile to my lips. No regrets, not a single one. A Matthew Price, 35 years old, and until recently I thought I had it all figured out. My life, my entire world was Chicago. This city, with its relentless hum and towering shadows, was home. I'd grown up here, carved out a career in architecture, finding a strange peace in the meticulous planning and structural integrity of buildings. It was a world of certainty, of blueprints and precise calculations. My life mirrored that, ordered, predictable, stable, or so I believed. 6 months ago I married Sarah. She was a whirlwind of color and chaos, a stark contrast to my carefully constructed existence. Sarah worked in marketing for a tech startup downtown, a job that often kept her late, buzzing with ideas and endless energy. She had this laugh, a bright, unrestrained sound that could cut through any lingering doubt or dark thought. We met at a friend's rooftop barbecue, a chance encounter that quickly spiraled into a passionate, undeniable connection. Within a year we were engaged, and 6 months after that we were exchanging vows in a sun-drenched ceremony overlooking Lake Michigan. It felt right, profoundly right. Our loft in Lincoln Park with its exposed brick and tall windows was more than just an apartment. It was a sanctuary filled with her vibrant art and my sprawling collection of rare first editions. Every book on those shelves was a piece of my soul, each spine a memory, each page a journey. They weren't just books, they were a meticulously curated history of my intellectual and emotional life. Sarah understood this, or at least I thought she did. She'd always joke about how I treated them better than I treated myself, but it was a loving tease, a quirky detail she found endearing. Our early months of marriage were a blur of domestic bliss. Weekends were spent exploring new neighborhoods, discovering hole-in-the-wall restaurants, or simply curled up on the sofa, her head on my chest, reading quietly while the city hummed outside our window. I loved her ferociously, a deep, abiding love that settled comfortably into the rhythm of our shared life. She was my anchor, my wild card, the vibrant splash of paint on my otherwise monochromatic canvas. I couldn't imagine a future without her laughter echoing in our home, without the subtle scent of her perfume lingering on my pillow. Then slowly, subtly, the cracks began to appear. It wasn't a sudden seismic shift, but a gradual erosion, like water wearing down stone. She started staying later at work, not just once or twice, but almost every night. Her explanations were always plausible: a big project, a demanding client, a new initiative. I tried to be understanding, supportive. I'd order takeout, sometimes bringing it to her office, hoping to steal a few minutes with her, but she'd often be too engrossed, her eyes fixed on her laptop screen, her responses distracted. Her phone became an extension of her hand, always face down, always muted. She'd excuse herself to take calls in the other room, whispering conspiratorially, then return with a strained smile, claiming it was just her sister or a difficult client. Her once vibrant eyes seemed to carry a new guardedness, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Our conversations grew shorter, shallower. The easy intimacy that had defined our early days began to feel forced, a performance we were both too tired to maintain. I tried to talk to her gently at first. "Is everything okay, Sarah? You seem a little distant." She'd brush it off, a wave of her hand. "Just work, Maddie, it's been crazy, you know how it is." But I didn't know how it was. My work, while demanding, rarely consumed my evenings to this extent. The architectural firm I worked for valued work-life balance, a concept that seemed entirely foreign to Sarah's current existence. The little things started to pile up, forming a mountainous dread in my gut. A new cologne scent on her clothes, one that wasn't mine. A sudden aversion to physical touch, a quick flinch when I'd reach for her hand. The way she'd flinch when her phone buzzed, a quick glance at the screen, a subtle frown before she'd dismiss it. My mind, usually so logical and structured, began to spin. I'd replay conversations, analyze her expressions, search for patterns in her evasions. Each observation chipped away at my trust, leaving me raw and exposed. I confronted her more directly one evening, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to remain calm. "Sarah, please just tell me what's going on. I feel like I'm losing you." Her reaction was swift and sharp, a complete reversal of her usual soft demeanor. "You're being ridiculous, Matthew. You're paranoid. There's nothing going on. Maybe you're just stressed or jealous. Is that it? Are you jealous of my success?" She threw accusations back at me, twisting my concern into an attack on her ambition. It was a masterful deflection, and for a moment I almost believed her. Had I become a jealous, insecure husband? Was I imagining things? The self-doubt was crippling, a venomous whisper in my ear. She painted me as the crazy one, the one with the problem, and in my desperation to believe her, to salvage what I thought was still salvageable, I let her. I apologized, promised to give her space, to trust her. I told myself it was just a rough patch, that every marriage had them and we would get through this, but the unease never truly left. It gnawed at me, a constant dull ache beneath the surface of my forced calm. Then 2 nights ago the facade shattered completely. Sarah said she was going out with some colleagues for team building. She kissed my cheek, a fleeting, almost clinical gesture, and left. I tried to immerse myself in a book, but the words blurred on the page, my mind racing. Around midnight the soft glow from her laptop on her desk caught my eye. She almost never left her laptop unattended, always closing it, always shutting down. My heart hammered against my ribs. A chill ran down my spine, a premonition of something terrible. I walked over to the desk, my feet heavy, each step a reluctant journey towards an undeniable truth. The screen was open, displaying an email client. My breath hitched in my throat as I saw the subject line. "Last night was amazing." My eyes darted to the sender. A name I recognized from Sarah's workmark, a senior developer she often mentioned. My hands trembled as I hovered over the trackpad, my mind screaming at me to look away, to preserve the fragile illusion. But I couldn't. The urge to know, to truly know, was too powerful. I clicked on the email thread, and there it was, laid bare in excruciating detail. Not just one email, but a whole chain stretching back weeks, months. Flirty exchanges escalating into explicit confessions, secret meetups, thinly veiled euphemisms for hotel rooms and stolen moments. There were photos too, grainy selfies, a lock of hair on a pillow, a blurred hand holding another. It was a digital diary of their affair, a meticulous record of my betrayal, time-stamped and undeniable. The date of one email, a particularly graphic one, hit me like a physical blow. It was from the night of our 6-month anniversary. While I had been preparing a romantic dinner, she had been with him. The blood drained from my face then surged back with a furious, blinding heat. The air left my lungs, my vision blurred. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore, it was cold, hard proof. She hadn't just cheated, she had systematically, methodically lied to me, gaslit me, and made me question my own sanity. The woman I had loved, married, and shared my life with was a stranger, a cruel deceiver. The pain was an almost unbearable physical sensation, like a fist clamping around my heart, squeezing until it ached. But beneath the pain, something else began to simmer, something far more dangerous, a cold, incandescent rage. It was a quiet fury, not loud or destructive but precise and surgical. I reread the emails, absorbing every cutting word, every casual endearment meant for someone else. Mark's name, Sarah's coworker, burned itself into my mind. He knew she was married, he knew I existed. They had built their sordid little world on the ashes of my marriage. My eyes fell on the forward butt. A wild, almost manic grin stretched across my face. All staff, she said. Every single person at that office would know. And her family, oh, her sweet doting mother and her ever-so-proper sister who had always admired our perfect marriage. They would know too. I imagined their faces, the shock, the disbelief, the dawning horror. It was a cruel thought, a vindictive one, but in that moment, fueled by betrayal and a profound sense of injustice, it felt like the only balm for the gaping wound in my soul. This wasn't just about breaking up. It was about ensuring that the world saw Sarah for who she truly was. It was about taking back some semblance of control, of dignity, from the wreckage she had wrought. My fingers flew across the keyboard, a furious ballet of vengeance. I drafted a short, concise email devoid of emotion, simply attaching the damning thread. The subject line was chillingly simple, regarding Sarah Price's professional conduct and personal integrity. I typed in all staff from her company directory, then with a perverse satisfaction added her mother's and sister's email addresses. The click of the send button was the loudest sound in the silent loft, a gunshot in the dead of night. It was done. The first shot fired. A strange calm settled over me, then the eye of the storm. The immediate searing pain subsided, replaced by cold, resolute clarity. I was done. Done with the lies, done with the gaslighting, done with the charade. When Sarah returned, she would find the locks changed, her belongings packed. And as for her precious book collection, the one she loved to show off, the one she'd inherited from her grandmother, the one she considered her most prized possession, I smiled, a tight, grim smile. Oh, I had a special surprise for that too. It wouldn't be an immediate blow, but a slow, agonizing realization. A lingering wound, a constant reminder of the day she shattered my world. I'm Matthew Price, and at 35 I thought I had it all figured out. A good job in downtown Chicago, a comfortable apartment overlooking the city, and a wife, Amelia, whom I'd loved with a ferocity that surprised even me. We'd been married for a mere 6 months, and those months had been a whirlwind of shared dreams, laughter, and the quiet comfort of knowing you'd found your person, or so I believed. The cracks had started subtly, a late night here, a vague excuse there, a growing distance in her eyes. When I'd tried to talk to her to voice my anxieties, she'd waved them away with a dismissive hand, a patronizing smile. "You're just stressed, Matt," she'd say. "Working too much, you're imagining things." She'd even suggested I was becoming paranoid, that my trust issues were resurfacing from past relationships. And because I loved her, because I wanted to believe in the Amelia I thought I knew, I'd started to doubt myself. Had I become that insecure man again? Was I truly crazy? The gaslighting was insidious, a slow drip of poison that eroded my self-worth, making me question my own sanity. Then came the night that shattered everything. Amelia had gone out with her work friends, leaving her laptop open on the kitchen counter, a glowing beacon in the dim light of our quiet apartment. Usually I respected her privacy, but a gnawing dread had taken root in my gut. Call it intuition, call it desperation, call it the universe finally screaming at me to open my eyes. My fingers, trembling slightly, hovered over the trackpad. I knew it was wrong to snoop, but the alternative, living in this torturous uncertainty, felt even worse. My eyes scanned the screen, landing on an open email client. And there it was, an email thread with a subject line that punched the air from my lungs. "Ray, our little secret." My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of impending doom. I clicked. The words swam before my eyes, a sickening torrent of intimate details and coded language. It wasn't just a casual flirtation, this was an ongoing, deeply personal affair with her colleague David. Pet names, references to shared moments, plans for future rendezvous. Each word was a fresh stab, each sentence a betrayal. My vision blurred, not with tears but with a searing, white-hot rage. The Amelia I knew, the woman I'd married, was a phantom, a meticulously constructed lie. She hadn't just cheated, she had systematically dismantled my trust, my sanity, and my very perception of reality. "You're crazy, Matt." The words echoed in my head, mocking me, twisting the knife. I wasn't crazy, I was just finally seeing the truth. A cold calm settled over me, a dangerous stillness that replaced the initial shock. My mind, usually prone to overthinking, became singularly focused. Revenge, not a petty, impulsive act, but something precise, something that would hit her where it hurt most. Her reputation, her carefully crafted image of professionalism, and the judgment of the people who mattered most to her, her family. My fingers, steady now, navigated to the forward button. I typed in all staff without a moment's hesitation. The autofill feature brought up hundreds of names, a vast audience for her unveiling. Then with a chilling deliberation, I added her mother's email address and her sister's. I imagined the confusion, then the horror, then the dawning realization on their faces. It wasn't just about Amelia anymore, it was about exposing the truth to everyone she had fooled, including herself. My finger hovered over the send button. There was a brief flicker of doubt, a fleeting whisper of what if. But it was immediately drowned out by the roar of betrayal, the sheer weight of her deceit. This wasn't just about a broken heart, it was about reclaiming my sanity, my dignity, my entire sense of self. I clicked send. The satisfying whoosh of the email leaving my outbox was like a release, a primal scream echoing through the digital void. In that moment, I wasn't just a cuckolded husband. I was an instrument of justice, a harbinger of truth. The apartment felt different now, no longer a sanctuary but a crime scene. I stood there, bathed in the glow of the laptop screen, the silence of the night punctuated only by the frantic beat of my own heart. I felt a strange mix of exhilaration and emptiness. The deed was done. The immediate aftermath was a blur of righteous anger and practical decisions. I grabbed a duffel bag, throwing in a few essentials. There was no way I was spending another night under the same roof as her, not after this. I changed the locks, a deliberate, defiant act. I wanted her to feel the sting of exclusion, the cold reality of her actions. When she came home, she wouldn't just find me gone, she'd find herself locked out, literally and figuratively, from the life she'd taken for granted. I spent the night at a friend's place, unable to sleep, replaying the email thread, the gaslighting, the betrayal. The anger simmered, but beneath it a strange sense of clarity emerged. This wasn't the end, it was a beginning. The next morning, as I gathered my thoughts, I received a barrage of frantic texts from Amelia, followed by calls from her mother and sister. The email had landed. The fallout was swift and catastrophic. Amelia's texts were a desperate mix of denial, anger, and pathetic attempts at manipulation. Her mother's messages were laced with disappointment, her sister's with shock. It was exactly what I had intended. A few days later, Amelia called, her voice tight with suppressed rage. She wanted to come pick up her things. I agreed, but the cold resolve in my voice surprised even me. She arrived, looking disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed. She didn't look at me, keeping her gaze fixed on the floor as she navigated the apartment, gathering her clothes, her toiletries, her small personal effects. The air was thick with unspoken accusations, with the debris of a shattered life. I watched her, a hollow ache in my chest, but also a growing sense of detachment. The person standing before me was a stranger, a caricature of the woman I'd loved. As she moved through the living room, heading towards the bookshelf that housed our combined collection, an idea sparked in my mind, a mischievous glint in the otherwise grim landscape of my thoughts. Amelia was a voracious reader, a collector of first editions, a woman who treated books with an almost sacred reverence. Her collection was her pride, her intellectual sanctuary. My eyes landed on a particularly cherished set of novels, a series she'd spent years completing. A wicked smile touched my lips. This was it, the silent, almost poetic retribution. "Don't touch my books, Matthew," she snapped, seeing my gaze linger. Her voice was sharper now, a hint of her true anger breaking through her facade of victimhood. "Oh, I wouldn't dream of it," I replied, my voice calm, almost cordial. "But you know, I always found it interesting how some stories just end abruptly." I walked over to her pristine shelf, pulled out a thick leather-bound volume, a classic she'd always adored, and with a slow, deliberate movement I tore out the last 2 pages. The sound of the paper ripping was shockingly loud in the silent room, a guttural tear that seemed to echo the rending of our marriage. Her eyes widened in horror, a gasp escaping her lips. It was pure, unadulterated shock. Before she could react, I moved to the next one and the next, systematically defiling her most prized possessions. The last 2 pages, always the last 2, the climax, the resolution, the satisfying conclusion gone. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, finally finding her voice, her face contorted in a mixture of disbelief and genuine anguish. "You monster, you maniac," I merely smiled, a cold, satisfied smile. "Just ensuring that some stories never truly end for you, Amelia," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You'll be chasing these endings for years, won't you, just like I chased the truth?" She stood there, frozen, staring at the mutilated books, then at me. The anger in her eyes was palpable, but beneath it I saw a flicker of something else, understanding. She knew. She knew this was my way of returning the favor, of leaving her with an open wound that would never quite heal, a mystery that would forever haunt her. I watched her gather her remaining belongings, her movements jerky and uncoordinated. She left without another word, the door slamming shut behind her, leaving me alone in the apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of a life that was and the quiet satisfaction of a revenge well served. The book pages, like my trust, were irrevocably torn. And I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that she would be looking for those endings for a very long time. The silence of the apartment that night was deafening. It wasn't the kind of silence that offered peace, but a heavy, pulsating void where laughter and whispers used to be. My hand still trembled slightly from the adrenaline, but a strange calm had settled over me. The deed was done. The email, with its damning evidence, was out. Not just to her colleagues, who would surely be gossiping by morning, but to the 2 women who had always enabled her, her mother and sister. The thought of their faces when they read it, the inevitable phone calls and furious accusations, brought a flicker of something akin to satisfaction. I had changed the locks right after she left for her girls' night out. It was a crude, immediate act, fueled by pure, unadulterated rage. But it felt necessary, a physical barrier against the betrayal that had permeated every corner of our shared life. I cleared her side of the closet, stuffing her clothes into a few large duffel bags. Her shoes, a collection I had once admired, now seemed like symbols of her fleeting presence. I even managed to neatly box her toiletries and the few framed photos she had scattered around. I wanted no trace of her remaining, no lingering scent or visual reminder to mock me. The first clang of her key in the lock, followed by a frustrated jiggle, came around 2 in the morning. I was sitting in the living room, the dim glow of a single lamp illuminating the spines of my books, their silent presence a comfort. I didn't move. I heard her voice, slurred at first, then sharpening with confusion. "Matthew, what the hell?" A series of bangs followed, louder this time. She was kicking the door, her anger bubbling up. "Matthew, open this door right now, this isn't funny." I still didn't respond. I just sat there listening, letting the reality of the situation sink in for her. I imagined her fumbling for her phone, probably calling my number, which I had already blocked. The thought of her standing out there, locked out of what she considered her home, brought a grim smile to my face. It was a small victory, but a potent one. The banging eventually subsided, replaced by the screech of tires as a car pulled away. She had gone. I didn't know where, and frankly, I didn't care. The apartment felt lighter, the air less suffocating. I spent the rest of the night in a strange state of limbo, not sleeping, just existing in the quiet aftermath. Morning brought the inevitable. My phone, which I had unblocked to receive her calls, started ringing around 8. It was her, of course. Her voice was raw, laced with a venom I hadn't heard before, even in our worst arguments. "You absolute monster, how could you? You ruined everything, my career, my family. You're a sick, twisted psychopath." I let her rant for a good minute, her words a torrent of self-pity and fury. When she finally paused to catch her breath, I spoke, my voice calm, almost detached. "You cheated, Sarah. You lied to me for months, gaslighted me into believing I was losing my mind. You made your bed, now lie in it. It was just a mistake, Matthew, a stupid mistake. You blew it out of proportion." "A mistake," I scoffed. "The email thread, Sarah, the detailed plans for your work trips. That wasn't a mistake, that was a choice, a deliberate, calculated choice to betray me." She started crying, then genuine sobs mixing with her angry accusations. "Please, Matthew, don't do this. Let's talk. We can fix this. We can." "There's nothing to fix," I interrupted, my voice firm. "It's over, Sarah. I want a divorce." The line went silent, then a sharp intake of breath. You can't do this to me." "I already have." And with that, I hung up. The next few days were a blur of legal consultations and setting boundaries. She tried to come back, tried to manipulate me, but I held firm. The email had done its job. Her colleagues were distant, her family, particularly her mother, had turned on her, disgusted by her actions. She had nowhere to turn. Then came the day she finally came to pick up her things. She brought her sister with her, a silent, disapproving presence. I had placed her packed bags by the door. She avoided my gaze, her face pale, her eyes puffy. As she gathered her belongings, I watched her, a hollow feeling in my chest. This wasn't the triumphant moment I had imagined, it was just an end. As she was about to leave, she paused, glancing around the apartment. Her eyes landed on my meticulously organized bookshelves. A flicker of her old condescension crossed her face. "Still burying yourself in those dusty old things, Matthew," she sneered. That was it. That dismissive comment, the casual disrespect for the one thing I held sacred, ignited a cold fury within me. It wasn't the grand, explosive anger of the night I found the emails. It was something deeper, more chilling. I walked over to my vast collection, my fingers trailing along the spines. I had spent years, decades, building this library. Each book was a world, a memory, a part of me. And she had just dismissed it as dusty old things. "You know," I said, my voice quiet, almost conversational, "there's one last thing I need to do." She watched me, a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. Her sister shifted uncomfortably. I reached for a thick, leather-bound copy of Moby Dick, a first edition that had taken me years to track down. With a deliberate, slow movement, I tore out the last 2 pages. The sound of the paper ripping was shockingly loud in the silent apartment. Sarah's eyes widened, her sister gasped. Then I moved to another book, a rare Shakespeare folio, and repeated the act. Then a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird, and then another and another. Not every book, not even a significant portion, but just enough to leave a trail of quiet, insidious destruction. I specifically chose the last 2 pages, a subtle nod to her leaving. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the tearing paper. Sarah stared, her face a mixture of horror and confusion. This wasn't the loud, dramatic fight she might have expected. This was something far more unsettling. "What are you doing?" she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. I looked at her, a faint, humorless smile touching my lips. "A souvenir, Sarah. For every lie, every gaslight, every moment you made me doubt my own sanity. You'll never know which ones or when you'll find them. It might be years from now, when you're finally settled, perhaps even happy. You'll pick up a beloved classic, eager to revisit a story only to find the ending gone, and when that happens, you'll remember me. You'll remember what you did, and you'll know that somewhere I'm smiling." I continued, my voice gaining a quiet intensity. "It's a gift, really, a constant nagging reminder of the consequences of your actions, a puzzle you can never fully solve, a void you can never fill. It's my way of ensuring you never truly find peace with what you did." Her face was ashen. She finally understood the true depth of my vengeance. It wasn't about the public humiliation or the lost career opportunities or even the divorce. It was about something far more personal, far more insidious. It was about striking at the very core of her sense of order and completion, mirroring the chaos she had inflicted upon my life. She turned, grabbing her last bag, and practically ran out the door, her sister trailing behind her, casting a quick, pitying glance my way. The apartment was truly empty now. I stood amidst my damaged books, a strange sense of catharsis washing over me. The immediate sting of betrayal was fading, replaced by a quiet strength. My books, though marred, still held their stories, their magic. And now they also held a secret, a testament to my quiet, methodical revenge. I walked to the window, looking out at the sprawling Chicago skyline. The city, vibrant and alive, stretched before me. I was 35, and my life, which had felt utterly shattered just days ago, was finally irrevocably my own again. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time I felt a lightness, a freedom I hadn't realized I'd lost. The missing pages would be her cross to bear, a silent echo of my pain reverberating through her life, one classic at a time. And I, Matthew Price, the man who loved his books, was finally ready to write his own next chapter, unburdened and unchained. The quiet hum of the city outside seemed to whisper, "Well done." I smiled, it was good to be back.